Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I realized that I had never done something on my channel before, and that something is ranking a certain filmmaker's filmography, from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, obviously, as you can see around me, and you have probably heard me talk extensively, whether it be here on the podcast, whatever it may be, people know I'm a fan of Rob Zombie. I know, hot button issue, whoa, Rob Zombie, get out of town. But I am, for the most part. I can see his flaws, believe me. So I'm not an apologist, but I am a fan. And I thought, what better time than now for me to give you guys my ranking on Rob Zombie's movies now that The Munsters is probably coming this fall. It finally just got a rating yesterday. I'm very excited for it. I think he's going to knock it out of the park, and I can't wait for a more mainstream audience to be able to go to the theater and enjoy a Rob Zombie movie because it's PG and not rated R. So I'm excited for people to have to show Rob Zombie a little more respect, now that he'll be restrained a little bit. So having said that, I thought, let's do this. Let's get this together. Let's rank them, my least favorite to my favorite. And to nobody's surprise, I've talked about this before. It was a running joke on my channel, but my least favorite Rob Zombie movie coming in at number 7 is going to be 31. Now, I wouldn't say I hate this movie. I would just say that this movie is very uninspired. It's a very simplistic idea, which isn't a bad thing at all. Not every movie has to tell you some deep, meaningful story. It's very straightforward and to the point. The problem is you don't like any of the characters aside from Doomhead. And I have to say really quick, Richard Brake as Doomhead is fantastic in this movie. I dressed up as Doomhead for Halloween one year because of Richard Brake's performance in this movie. It enthralled me. Was never a huge fan of the movie, but I loved his performance in this movie. But aside from that, it really is just a lot of throwaway characters with some subpar acting, and there's just no meat to grab onto. Now, the counter argument to that would be, wasn't that the point, Nick? Isn't it just to go watch people be slaughtered and just have a fun time? Well, yeah, but it's kind of hard to get me invested in a movie when I'm not really rooting for anyone. There's nothing specifically aside from Doomhead that stands out, and he doesn't even come back into the movie after the opening monologue till like the last half hour. So there's a good hour in there where you're just like, who am I rooting for here? It was clearly just something that Rob Zombie wanted to do. He wanted to have fun. He wanted to pump a horror movie out that really was just a shut your brain off and have fun type of movie. It is very fun. I'll never take that away from it. The effects are awesome, as always. Wayne Toth as the makeup effects guy has been money for all of Rob Zombie's movies. But it's just kind of a bland movie that doesn't really go anywhere. So 31 is my least favorite of his, but that's saying something because I don't think it's bad. It's just So if that's the worst you can do, Rob, okay, you've got me. Then coming in at number 6 is going to be 3 from Hell. Well, let's be honest with ourselves, guys. We've talked about this ad nauseum in the horror community. There never needed to be a sequel to Devil's Rejects, especially not with the way that movie ended and how it just nicely, wrapped a bow on the story of the Firefly family. But I can't lie, I was very excited when he announced that he was doing a follow-up because I said, you know what, screw it, let's do it. Let's catch up with the Fireflies again. And for the most part, this movie gets the Fireflies right. I really enjoy the addition of Wolfie, played by Richard Brake. I think he fits right in. It's very believable. I think Sherry Moon, again, as this crazy, just insane version of Baby, if she couldn't have gotten crazier, she does in this movie, is great. Bill Moseley as Otis is always money. I really enjoy the characters in this movie. Why is it number 6, though? There's a lot that it shows that it was a lower budget, kind of unnecessary movie a lot, throughout its runtime, mainly toward the end. You get to this nice, what could have been an ending of them just kind of going off and doing their thing, but then they go to Mexico and we have to have this finale take place in Mexico with this connection to Danny Trejo's character and this gang, and it's just really unnecessary. There's even, I believe, a line in the movie where I believe it's Otis or maybe it's Baby. One of them says something to that effect of like, what do we do? Like while they're in Mexico, like what's the point? It's kind of this movie. Like, Sid Haig was sick, so we couldn't get him back aside from the one scene that he's in. And it really suffers because of that. We really needed Sid Haig because it doesn't feel the same, although Richard Brake is good in the movie. And also, the effects are pretty bad in the second half of the movie. And this is just my opinion, guys, but I really noticed the CGI in the second half of this movie. And I just feel like the whole second half is just unnecessary. Like it doesn't really go anywhere. It's kind of anticlimactic. It turns more into just a straight up action movie with a smaller budget. I don't know. I mean, it was unnecessary, but I really do enjoy the first half of this movie. I really do. I think it was fairly strong. And then it kind of loses me. But it's not a bad movie. But definitely my least favorite in the Firefly trilogy. And definitely my number 6 on the ranking of Rob Zombie's movies. Now, those two were easy. After that, it gets kind of difficult for me. This next one might ruffle some feathers, but I'm just going to go for it. I'm shooting straight from the hip with these. There was no prep going into this. I grabbed the movies in the ranking that I would put them, and whatever comes out, comes out. Number 5 is Lords of Salem. I will say first and foremost, the Lords of Salem is probably, arguably, aside from one other movie, his best looking movie, his most cohesive story for 95% of it, and it's pretty well acted. Now, it's got a lot of atmosphere and mood and tone and some creepy visuals, and it's a pretty good story. The problem with the Lords of Salem is two things. One, at multiple points during this movie, you're not buying Sherry Moon Zombie's performance. And when she is your lead, she really had to bring her A game. I'm not going to take anything away from her because there are times where she does bring her A game in this film. But there are times when you needed more from her and you didn't get it. And if your lead is not into it 100% all the time, it's hard as a viewer to go, wow, what a movie. Great concepts, great ideas, great play on history, great ideas, so much potential. And the ending is all over the place. And before people come at me and go, well, this is what it means, I know exactly what the ending means. I know what it means. I think it was poorly put together at the end. It's all over the place. There's a lot of unexplained imagery and moments in this finale and threads kind of left hanging where it's like you wanted to see something happen and then you hear about it happen, but you really wanted to see it happen. It gets incoherent in the last 10 minutes of this movie. It just does. I know where it's leading. You know where it's leading. You know what happens, but it's so shoddily put together that you're just like, we really could not have streamlined this in any way to make this better? Like make more sense? Seem more linear? It is absolutely frustrating because you nail that ending and Sherry gives a little bit better of a performance. This is probably like number 2 or 3. Straight up. I mean, it has so many things working for it. So don't get me wrong. I do like The Lords of Salem quite a bit. I really, really do. This is a gorgeous movie. But narratively speaking, it really loses you at the most important moment when it should be grabbing you. So coming in at number 4, this is actually a surprise to me, but when I was doing the ranking kind of in my head, I was like, this probably would come in at number 4. Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. And man, where do I begin? Basically, I would just say that the first time I saw this movie, I thought the novel of having Michael's childhood be a little bit explained and getting some method to the madness was a really cool original idea. Now, 15 years later, I'm not a fan of it at all. At all. I mean, aside from the fact that you get some really over-the-top dialogue, some despicable characters, just, man, some stuff that's hard to sit through. It's just unnecessary. It doesn't really need to be there. It doesn't really work. But anyway, the second half of this movie, I'm a really big fan of. Actually, I would say from the second act, the first act is the weak act. The second act in the sanitarium is pretty good. The third act, which is a retelling of the original Halloween, I really enjoy, actually, quite a bit. Super fun, super fast-paced. This is not a bad movie. But that first act, man, is it hard to get through at times. So I feel like, in fairness, it probably should land right smack dab in the middle at number 4. There's 3 ahead of it, there's 3 behind it. It's right there. The portrayal of Michael alone, the second half of the movie alone, some of the acting, Danielle Harris, Scout Taylor Compton, that is enough for me to go, okay, I'm gonna give this I'm gonna put it in the middle. It's gonna be on the higher end and not on the lower end. So Rob Zombie's Halloween comes in at number 4. And then we're down to the top 3. You guys know what's left, but what ranks where? Well, number 3 is going to be The Devil's Rejects. Now, The Devil's Rejects is, many would argue, Rob Zombie's best film. Story-wise, acting-wise, visuals-wise, soundtrack, you name it. I mean, The Devil's Rejects, it nails everything. I don't even know if I can really complain. Honestly, I'm sitting here thinking like, wow, what can I complain about with this movie? There's really nothing to complain about with this movie. I really, really enjoy this movie. I think it is narratively strong. I think it's acted well. I think the gore is great. I think it has one of the best endings in horror history, in my opinion. It is very dark and macabre and depressing, and yeah, and it's fun at the same time, right? Isn't that weird? But honestly, I would have to put Devil's Rejects at 3. I can't really say anything bad about the movie. I'm a big fan. This was the first Rob Zombie movie I ever saw, and it was only his second movie, so it's not that surprising, but I was hooked right away. So The Devil's Rejects comes in at number 3. These top 2, if you see what 2 is going to be, you obviously know what 1's going to be. If you're a fan of the channel, then you obviously know what 1's going to be, but let's go to 2 first. House of a Thousand Corpses. I have talked about this at nauseum with you guys on this channel. I love this movie. I think this movie is so old school. It has a great vibe to it, great atmosphere, great look. I think that it goes completely off the walls crazy in the third act, and I love it. I think that it's genuinely creepy and frightening, and this insane ride of a twisted, sick music video with some great gore and great acting and great set pieces. What else do you say? What else could you want? I love this movie. I absolutely love this movie. For the longest time, for years, it was my favorite Rob Zombie movie until one came along. I don't have anything bad to say about this movie aside from I would have liked to get a little more fleshed out with Dr. Satan. I guess that's a negative I can put with Devil's Rejects too. No touching of Dr. Satan, aside from the deleted scene. I know. We just totally dropped it. That was like the whole reason these kids were where they were in the first movie. But I digress. House of a Thousand Corpses is a freaking banger, and I won't let anybody say otherwise. But number 1 is number 1. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Easily my favorite Rob Zombie movie by a mile. And I love House of a Thousand Corpses. This movie is the Mona Lisa in his filmography, in my opinion. I think that it looks gorgeous, shot on 16 millimeter. Great. It is acted beautifully. I think the atmosphere, the mood, the tones, the gore, the realism, the story that's being told, the effects of that night on everyone, and how we see them all spiral into madness slowly is freaking beautiful. Mainly Laurie, but all of them lose their mind a little bit in their own way. I think it's handled beautifully. I think that unlike his first movie, Rob was able to tell a story that was not hindered by anything that came before it, aside from the brother-sister connection. And it's handled in such a realistic, dark, gritty way. Look, say what you will about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. It may not be your cup of tea, but my God, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is a very realistic, gritty, grimy, dirty, dark movie. And I was there for it. I was all about it. I am still all about it. It is my number 1 Rob Zombie film and my number 2 Halloween film in the franchise. And I don't think that's ever going to change. I really don't. So Halloween Ends, I'm sorry. Even if you're fantastic, you'll do no better than 3. So that is my ranking of the Rob Zombie movie guys. The Rob Zombie movie guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of Rob Zombie's filmography. What are some of your favorites? What are some of your least favorites? And what's right in the middle? Do you agree with my ranking? Is yours different? Well, let me know down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And this is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I am pulling out.